And as always, I'm joined by Taylor Callahan, my very pregnant.
I have a boy's name for a first name.
Yeah, you do, but it's kind of one of those gender neutral names, isn't
Know
it?
what the story is behind my naming?
I would love to know the story.
If if it was up to my mother, I would have been Michelle Jr. because she was the most masculine woman.
Yeah, your mom was pretty masculine. She was a badass.
So my dad was like, "No, we're not naming her that." And so I got Michelle for a middle name. I still ended up with her name, but
Uh-huh.
Taylor. And I hated it for years. For years, I was like, "Ugh, Taylor's a terrible name." And then as I got older, I realized that my name wasn't popular, and that was good. But when I was young, I wanted a name like Veronica or Victoria or something like, fucking
Really?
like I don't know. But that story is really funny because Jean. I've never heard Jean spelled that way. So good on you, Dad.
Whatever, man.
No, neither have I. I
Right.
wouldn't even call it masculine because the masculine of Gene, I would imagine being
E.
Gene.
Gene, right? Well,
Yeah.
that's kind of what I've. Yeah,
More unique. I'm not familiar with that.
I
It's its
think
own.
yeah, I mean, I think he fucked up even with the man's spelling of. I mean, I think yeah, he just got it. But my father was a terrible. That's one of the things that I got from him. Actually, was I'm a fairly good writer, but I'm a terrible speller. So thank God for spell check.
Well, you're so moving right along. Damn.
All right. So we are.
I want to comment really quickly because I love, first of all, Bridget. I know that she can't join us because she works on Sundays.
Right.
But her illustrations in this book are such a joy.
True.
And this illustration in particular is really special because now that I'm familiar with her, and I myself am considered quite fairy-esque, this image of so the storyline goes, she all of her things had been taken and thrown, just cast away by the homeowners, and so she had to go back and get her things out of a dumpster. And I envision this fairy-like woman digging through this pile of things to recover her plant babies and her bird cage. And so this is what's happening there. And this little fairy is collecting her things and collecting her bird cage, retrieving it to bring it home.
Yeah.
And so I just thought, like the first line, this was quintessential her.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you, Bridget, for your fantastic illustrations. This book it really puts the book together well.
Yeah, I mean, and just and speaking of Bridget, and also Ashley, who designed the cover, Bridget and Ashley and I, yep, beautiful. And they're also going to be involved in the and some of the art and illustrations and cover design in the other Wildflower books, but we are going to put together. We're going to do a. I don't know if it'll be live. It'll just be a recorded session between the three of us talking about, and Taylor, if that's something you could join, that would be awesome. But we'll probably have to record it because they have crazy schedules and whatever, and just upload it. But we're going to talk about the art and cover design and that whole process and their involvement in the project and how we worked together. So that'll be awesome. And then we'll also be talking about some of how we're going to be working together as we move forward in the upcoming book with the upcoming books. So that's going to be like a little kind of a little teaser about what's coming, what we're going to be up to this year later on. So I wanted to just say that this story was inspired by a phone call that I got almost in the middle of the night. It certainly felt like the middle of the night to me. 10 o'clock on a Sunday night, I get a phone call from a woman whose voice I hadn't heard in over 10 years. And she is the subject of the story Her. Um, and she kind of comes in and out of, she's mentioned in a few stories throughout the book. And of course, she is also the primary person who the book is dedicated to. For her, I think mainly because when I thought of the courage and the commitment in the discipline for me to be able to do this in the first place, one of the loudest and most consistent voices in my mind, of course, I hadn't heard her voice, had been hers over the years. So even though we had not been in each other's lives, it was her voice that was always that would always come to me in moments when I needed to muster the courage and the gumption to do it. And I don't think she ever knew how much of an influence and inspiration she was to me. And the beautiful thing is that when I sent her a copy of the book, she had no idea that the book had been, she had no idea, and no idea that she was kind of in it a lot. And so it was a bit overwhelming to her because she tends to be an extremely quiet, private person who does not like limelight or mention or whatever, moves about her life in a pretty quiet way. She was a bit overwhelmed by it and taken back. But since then, we have nurtured a friendship. And so one of the precious things that has developed since the publication of my book is that I have been able to nurture a friendship with someone who had been that important to me and had been that much of an influence. And so that has been kind of a precious development. So I just wanted to share that because that has been, going on. And I had invited her to come to and join us for this live stream, but it was, she honestly felt that it was, it would be a little too emotional for her, honestly. So, but certainly appreciated the invitation. So, yeah, not something that she could do. So I just wanted you to know that, Taylor. I know you knew. I know you knew I had extended the invitation, but yeah.
Yeah. And she's a very private person. And I have actually got to become an acquaintance of hers through this, which if I were to describe her, it would just be she's probably one of the most poetic people I've ever met.
Mm-hmm.
I say that. I mean that she literally speaks in poetry, and I'll be emotional for her. So she is a very, very unique, special individual, for lack of better terminology. And so the first line here underneath the illustration, this was quintessential her, dashed about in a callous world by callous people who had no regard for the sacredness and sentience of plants or the sentimental poetry of a little bird cage.
Mm-hmm.
It does suit her very well.
Yeah. I mean, that was why she was calling, because it was in the middle of this situation where she had come home from tending to her father who was ailing, and the new owners of the property had, were making all these changes. And, we're all familiar with that madness. I've experienced that kind of, craziness, new owners of the property and all these changes, but they were actually throwing away her plants, and they saw the little bird cage in the backyard.
Pissed.
Yeah.
Touch my.
I know, right? I know how you are about plants.
Okay.
And yeah, so she was dragging them as we were talking. She was dragging stuff out of the dumpster and bringing it back to its right. See, she lived in a little back cottage, as so common in Florida, right? You have the front house and then you have the little back cottage. And so, but at any rate, she, thought that I would understand that moment she was experiencing. She wanted to kind of share it, and so there she was after 10 long years of silence between us. So where do you want to go from here? So it's and I actually think, like, I know people who have had experiences like this, where people from their past who are really important to them and that they kind of never forgot, and they kind of held, a special place in their heart, like that they kind of reemerge at some point. And I don't know what that's about. I don't know if that's planetary alignment, star alignment, whatever. Right. I mean, I don't know. Or perhaps our lives go in cycles, natural cycles, and there are people who move in and out, and sometimes they move out because that is necessary, and then maybe return later on. And this can happen with family members. This can happen with friends. This could happen with acquaintances. It's very, very interesting. So sometimes people move in our lives and out again, to never to be seen again. And sometimes they circle back.
Perhaps like an intricate weaving of our lifelines. We all have lifelines that come out of us and attach to anyone that we've ever touched in our lifetimes. And so, on occasion, there are individuals in which we cross paths with that. It's more of, instead of a singular strand, it's more of a weaving or a braiding.
Mm-hmm.
And those connections are lifetimes thick. And those lines need to be nurtured. Sometimes there are lines that need to be cut. We have to take our spiritual universal scissors and cut a line that no longer serves us.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I had a female lover that really did me wrong.
Yeah, every time you say that, I smile. I can't really, I giggle. Sorry, let me just, okay, go ahead.
Can you repeat it though? I didn't hear. She didn't what though?
He did me wrong.
Wrong.
Women will do that.
Okay. That happens in relationships. I'd like to hear more.
Thank you, Robin.
This is, long ago, and things were a little more polyamorous in my life back then.
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay.
I had caught her with my roommate. I woke up to the sounds and walked into my living room, and my young roommate and my lover were busy. And so I yoked her up and kicked her out, and we were this close in each other's face. And I had never been so angry and crossed in all of my days by a man or a woman. And she looked me dead in my eyes and hit me. You are so sexy when you're mad. This is toxic. You've got to go, sis. But so years later, the circle came full, and I received a phone call, and essentially it was like, I just want to apologize. I did you so wrong, and I am so sorry. And I hadn't been able to really release that anger, that angst, but I thought all of it.
Yeah,
that's really all I need. So once the redrawn, I was able to move on.
Mm-hmm.
which was great. So, you know, it goes both ways. There are good, you know, the net, the weaving, there are good and bad. And I think it's up to our spirits to decide how in which they cross in the past year. But in this case, her and Patti, you reference it to planets, and I think that that is a really great analogy. But I think that it was really beautiful, the reconnecting after this book came out. As you know, it made me giddy for you.
Yeah, you were having all kinds of fantasies, girl. It was kind of funny to watch.
Well, don't do that, because
that's not
like,
happening.
what's that about? And I'm gonna be like, no, don't make me explain. I'm blushing already. But essentially, I just really wanted you both to have clearly, and if you read the other story titled Her, there needed to be some closure, because there was something really deep and sentimental in this relationship, something unique and special that happened between the two of you, more so than physically. And so I'm really grateful that you've been able to rekindle a friendship from all of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we were a disaster as lovers.
Relatable.
I mean, no, but I mean, not a complete disaster, but honestly, it was, you know,
that.
Say that again.
I mean, would she agree with that?
Oh yeah, I think so. There were just times when she had no idea what I was talking about, or I had no idea what she was talking about, and we just couldn't seem to. And then there are times when it was absolutely, crystal clear. So, and I don't know if that kind of dynamic would improve over time, or it just would. It's an indication that you're not as in sync as you would need to be in order to be in a healthy partnership. You know what I mean? So it is like two planets orbiting the same sun, appreciating each other's gravitational pull, but staying far enough away, where you can admire the beauty and all of what is, seen in that planet, and all of what you have in common. You know what I mean? So it's
You share the crown, because it's just so beautiful.
Oh, can I read the crone? So we usually do read the crone. We just kind of we're just all over the place this morning, but I hope people don't mind. It might be because I had a little extra caffeine in that chai tea I made this morning.
It's a full moon. I have a baby
full moon
flip side of my stomach. I'm also quite caffeinated, so we can just be a wreck together today.
Yeah, good, awesome. All right.
I know. I got Starbucks. Serious.
See, it's all.
And hi, Ashley. We're just starting, honey. We've just been we've been meandering. All right. So and I always read the crone first. We didn't. We kind of jumped ahead before the crone, but Taylor has reprimanded me, and so now I'm gonna do my job.
I just gotta laugh for a second at you're like, my chai tea might have been a little over caffeinated today. That's horrible.
It's so darn good though, honestly. But yeah, I was out early this morning, sitting under the full moon, drinking my chai tea, and it was just perfection. So here's the crone for the introduction to this story. Sometimes two people are like planets, the crone says, and planets are like people, whisper the fairies. They cannot escape each other's orbit, but they cannot come too close either, continues the crone. So they admire each other through telescopes and quietly celebrate each other's revolution around the same sun. The fairies throw petals into the fire. For people planets, they whisper.
For people planet.
For people planets. All right. Or for planet people.
And so I reread this story prior to going to sleep last night. And I just think, essentially the be all end all is that you realized through conversations and said to her, it's my Dharma, teaching is my Dharma.
Mm-hmm.
Thought about how you ended up pulled into Lake Worth.
Mm-hmm.
And I think about, I have a deep seated love for my hometown. I'm not going to get emotional.
Yes, you are.
And I think about the children in Lake Worth, and what we needed then, now. And it is individuals like you, people who see these students. You have a gift. And whether it be in the cafe, I had watched you be a teacher, more so a guide. And I know that you don't like that referencing because, we're all our own guides and we're all our own teachers. But you were that for so many people in that little place, that little jewel. And so it really, truly, it's like we go searching our whole lives for what is my purpose? What is my Dharma? But in the interim of that, you had been serving it, whether you were teaching or running this cafe, and at a point the cafe was running you. Yes, absolutely. But you were still serving up your Dharma.
Mm-hmm.
So I did get a little emotional reading it because teaching is your Dharma.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't even have to try.
Dharma is a term that people are less familiar with. We're all familiar with karma. Karma this,
Yeah.
karma that. Don't get any karma. And but when you say Dharma, we're like, what? What's what's that? And the way, and I had to have it explained to me more than once by different people and different perspectives. And this is the understanding that I've come to it. And I actually think that Dharma is something to really think about more. I think it might benefit us to think less about karma and more about Dharma. But so karma I see as kind of a debt system, right? So you don't want to owe any karma. You don't want any karmic debt. You want to pay your karmic debt. And the whole principle is, if you leave this lifetime with karma that you're owing, some karmic debt, then you're going to be paying it next lifetime. And it's kind of just like this rolling debt of this rolling karmic debt that people think. So when people will often refer to it, oh well, karma will get them, they'll pay with their karma, or I don't want to accumulate any karma, I don't want any debt. And it's very much about debt and owing. You don't want to owe any karma. Now Dharma is more about investment and contribution. So it's the way we invest in ourselves, our communities, the world, our future lives, and the way we contribute, And so Dharma is, and it often is. And when people say, what is my purpose? What's the meaning of my life? What am I supposed to be doing with my life? And I think these are really important questions, though sometimes people will get so caught up in it, and I am guilty of that. Like I got caught up, where I didn't see what was right in front of my face. I didn't see that I had always been drawn towards what was going to flow most naturally for me, which was teaching, which was kind of being a teacher. And so that is what I ended up doing. And the reason why, and there are a lot of people who are like, man, I wish you wouldn't talk about owning that cafe the way you're talking about it, but it is really important. And I have found to be really honest. with our failures, right? So, and I don't really see the cafe, the 10 years that I ran a cafe, as a failure, because I think there are a lot of really wonderful things that happen, but it was an upstream. It was extremely difficult to keep that going. So there was a lot of joy associated with it, but I sacrificed everything, my health, my finances, all, I kind of martyred myself for this thing that I identified as my legacy. This is going to be my, go ahead. What is that?
Kick you out. We had you take the fucking weekend off. Like, we kicked you out.
Yeah.
Like, and then you'd still come down with
Yep.
baked sweet potatoes and key high, and Bridget and I would be like, get the fuck out of the kitchen. Go
Yep.
to your apartment, go for a walk, remove yourself from this place for the next 24 hours and live outside of the cafe.
Yeah.
Now, this was, closer towards the end, and I didn't, know the entirety of how much you had poured into Mother Earth Sanctuary Cafe, but I could see it. From the moment I put that red apron on and jumped behind the line there, it was like, no, she needs help. I want to be a part of this, because you were already giving so much of yourself away. And this individual saw that much earlier on.
Yes, she did.
And this is for you.
Yes, she did. And so that's, so we do, and it's, so there are no regrets. I'm glad that I had that experience, but I also, the takeaway and the lesson that I learned is that I don't think anybody has to be, but I know for me personally, I don't have to martyr myself to make a contribution to this world. I don't have to be a martyr to fulfill my purpose, to make a contribution to my community and to others, and a lot of times, and I think this is especially true for women, we feel that we have to make a sacrifice. We get on, like we attach ourselves to a cause, and then we give everything to that cause, sacrifice our health, sacrifice finances, wrap our world up in it, and we don't realize that we have now just made ourselves a martyr to a cause, and we don't have to do that. Like, our Dharma, our purpose, our contribution, the reason why we're here does not require that we sacrifice our life for it. As a matter of fact, it should be a source of joy and nourishment. It should also be something that lifts us up, so it took me 3 years to kind of recover from my cafe days. And then when I returned to teaching, was able to begin to kind of put my life back together and recover from all of the, the sacrifices I had made. So it was very interesting to have that experience where I'm kind of patching my life together again. And people are saying, when are you going to open another one? We miss you. Come back. We loved your place. I missed it so much. When are you going to open another one? And here I am trying to put myself back together again after being so depleted by that 10-year experience. So it was a very interesting experience, and I do not think that I'm alone in it. I think that my experience parallels many people's experience, especially women who commit themselves to, and my sympathy does go out to, for instance, now we're living through a pandemic where so many mom and pops have closed. and a lot of them were, folks like me. Where'd you want to
So
go from here?
I'm just going to read a little piece of the story in which this is discussed.
Mm-hmm.
She could not have known she was asking the Dharma question. 12 years ago, I did not know what Dharma was. I didn't know what namaste meant either. I had just left my teaching job to open a funky little cafe. A new chapter, I had said, and a better way to make a contribution to the world. And I had just begun a sort of spiritual awakening. She stood at the counter one day wearing a bohemian devil-may-care outfit and a safety pin necklace, her short red hair propped up in little spikes on the top of her head. May I have a breve latte, please? I love her style. I squinted and smiled. I must have tilted my head like a French bulldog. It's made with half and half, she added. Though she was nearly 15 years my younger, her knowledge of spiritual and metaphysical had been steeped for decades. I often, and I never told her this, would leave a conversation to look up words and phrases that she had just used so that I could casually return to the subject later, a bit more prepared. I've recently experienced this, so I couldn't help but laugh because it's absolutely hysterical. And girl, if you are watching or watch later, you have a vocabulary for the ages. And she, being extremely perceptive, probably knew that I was barely keeping up. And she had probably seen the warning signs in my exuberance to pour myself into this place, eschewing thoughts of my future, security, and safety nets. This was my new purpose in life, my legacy, and I would give it everything. One day she asked, "Are you going to be a slave to your cafe?" The question angered me. Why did she not support me? It took me years to realize the truth behind this question. That I had worked endless hours for a decade and barely made enough to keep a roof over my head. I had no health insurance and my varicose veins were in constant pain. I had no time for a partner, for family, or vacations. Over the years, I battled challenges outside of the cafe too. Road construction that detoured customers, drug dealers across the street that scared some away, roof leaks, plumbing issues, hurricanes, theft, vandalism. And I had done it alone. Yes, I had created a wonderful, magical gathering place with an impressive menu and scratch kitchen. But I was its slave, and a slave to the idea that this was my legacy, my Dharma.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so much to unpack there. And I think that any of us that frequented that cafe or were brought under your wing there or sat under that mango tree and shared space and coffee or tea can speak on that you had poured your entirety of your soul into that place. But still, I find that, and this goes for so many of us, we're still fulfilling our Dharma.
Mm-hmm.
Whether we see it or not. It's always there, instead of us constantly searching for our purpose, usually we are already fulfilling it.
We're already doing it. Yeah, we're already doing it, and we might be doing it in different settings. We might be doing it in different ways. Like, for instance, I opened up a cafe, but it really wasn't all about food. It was more, I was always teaching. I was always teaching one way or another. Whether it was at an open mic night, with my, ponderings that I would share, or whether it was in the kitchen when people would put up stools. I was always teaching something.
Cook a certain thing, or I learned how to take time with the time because I was a very flagrant fairy in your kitchen.
You're all fire. So you were like the fire tornado.
She called me a fire tornado.
Yep.
And I would just be throwing things together. And Patti taught me a lesson of taking my time. Patty only used fresh herbs. Patty only made from scratch. And so there were moments in her kitchen where she would find there were lessons that were presented, and you always jumped at them. And learning how to take my time while making food and to embrace everything that was happening in the making of that food. How that food felt in my bare hands as I made the burgers, or how we chopped the herbs and inhaled the senses of all of our senses, how all of that became interpreted into what we were serving people and how we fed people more than just food, but love.
Absolutely. That was the centerpiece, and it's really the centerpiece of just about everything that I end up teaching. Yeah.
Yes, you still do teaching,
Yeah.
cooking class,
Yeah.
and a lot of times it's for kids who haven't had the best given to them. And so what a beautiful lesson to be able to teach somebody, even if you're not cooking with the best ingredients, even if you're not getting the name brand stuff. And this, is so broad in life. You can make it with love. And that tastes the best. That gives the best flavor.
Yeah. It's not just
so
a
many-
saying. Yeah.
And back to teaching, I'm grateful every day that we have conversations about, what you do and the students. And I'm grateful that they have a teacher like you, especially in a time like now. These kids, they need it. They need some adult that can listen, that is available to them in that way. And so you are fulfilling your Dharma.
Yeah, we always are. And I also think that we sometimes think that we just have one purpose in life, but we actually, I like to say purpose. We have purpose, meaning we have many, and so the thing is to be open. Now, one of the things that I think people get really confused about, like what our purpose is or what is going to be my legacy or whatever, because we kind of come into these environments and we have all of these outside voices. We have all of these outside influences. We have all of the shoulds, like the pressure to live a life that looks like it's successful, or to be a homeowner. That's, like that should be part of your purpose. So our purpose, it gets kind of funneled into these expectations, rather than a purpose. When I think of purpose, I think of like that thing that, is that your soul is called to do, that, in other words, if you believe that we've come here to accomplish something this lifetime, well, what is it? I want to make sure I do before I leave, like I want to make sure I get that done. Whereas so much of those kind of soulful understandings of things have kind of been put aside and kind of been replaced by, the pressure to be a success, be a homeowner. And like for women, you have to, you have children, a family, you have all these things kind of laid out for you in terms of the shoulds. But at the end of the day, I still think it's fruitful for us to think about, well, what is, what is my soul's calling? Like, what is it, and what have the natural patterns? A lot of times, Dharma has to do with the natural patterns of your life. Like, what have these shown me? What is the natural direction? Where are the natural directions I've been guided? And that often reveals our Dharma, where our Dharma lives,
Yeah, our legacy is more so what our spirit has come to do, and our materials. in this
Yeah.
lifetime.
Yeah. So it's always knocking. It's like, hey, hey. I think you and I have had conversations about this a lot,
Absolutely.
because you
Wake,
have,
you had to awaken me to remind me of these things as well, and have essentially dove full-fledged into motherhood without coming up for air ever. I'm, looking for my healing journey and what I'm supposed to be doing for others. And
see, here's the thing. Okay. Even just that. I'm looking for my healing journey. Okay.
Right.
All
But
right.
I'm already-
So let me just, right. So you didn't get into motherhood because you were told you needed to get into motherhood.
right.
You got into motherhood because it was a natural path for you and your partner, Pat, who I think you had, I really think you guys were meant to be partners this lifetime and to bring children into the world. Like I see that. That seems pretty obvious to me. And the children that you've brought into the world have been extraordinary. I mean, I think all children are extraordinary, but I think yours are particularly extraordinary. And the way that you have mothered has been extraordinary. And when you say, I'm looking for my healing path, but the way that you have mothered is a healing path in that you have turned around some of the family patterns that have stopped with you. I mean, the way your mother passed is then what you had to endure because of that. Your children will never endure. So
That's right.
that family history of drug abuse and alcohol abuse, that ended with you. And Pat had the same, your partner had the same history, and you two made that commitment. And you've committed yourselves to that, and now you're going to have your fourth child, and you've done that. That is an incredibly powerful healing journey as a parent that should never be underestimated. So it's funny that you are saying I'm looking for my healing journey, but I think your healing journey looks the way it looks right now. When the children are older and things shift, then I think you will naturally flow into the next chapter of your healing journey. But right now, the healing journey for you, this chapter looks like this,
Yes. And oftentimes
that's what I mean. Like we are examples of.
I was the mother for my mother.
Mhm.
I have a friend from high school on here that I'm sure would reiterate that in high school, before I was a mother, I was the mother to those who needed that
Mhm.
energy. It's always been mothering is just kind of my heart's pull. And so now I have these little versions of myself running around that I am mothering and healing myself and them for what I was not given. And so this is what I mean when I say we don't realize we're doing it. And this goes for everyone. Sorry, my son has his hearing aids in and apparently just wants to be louder with his hearing aids. But this is for so many of us how it happens. We are chasing something.
Right.
That we do it.
Yep. It's just we're kind of, I mean, and there are people who listen to their heart and their spirit a little more,
Yeah.
like you do, and I have. And then there are people who listen more to the outside voices that say all the shoulds that you need to be and so forth. I think at some point, though, if there's disparity between what you've done because you followed the shoulds and what your heart wants and what your spirit wants, at some point there'll be a bit of a readjustment
Yeah.
in your life path. So,
Oftentimes, you and I both know this. that it often takes a jarring from the universe for this recollection to come to fruition. You need a soul to be shaken back into that knowing. And they're not always pleasant and they're not always painless, and so you've had those and I've had those.
And then what's so valuable is that we have these people along the way who gently, sometimes not so gently, but gently remind us that, we're okay, we're on our path, or ask, ask questions that help give clarity, and those are the teachers along the way that help us see our dharma, or our purpose, kind of
Somebody
help
lift,
us. Yep.
if we're blessed, we have somebody come along and lift a veil, move the curtain sides, and you see stage left, and you're like, oh, thank you.
So very, very grateful for those people, and I think this story is called Dharma because it's something that I talk about in my own Dharma in this, and of course with someone who I think in my life helped shed, help kind of lift those veils, help pull the curtain back for me from time to time, and didn't really I think at the time she was doing anything particularly significant.
Right.
And that's often the case. We don't really think we're doing anything significant at the time, like for instance, as a mother, as a friend, as a teacher, we think we're just kind of doing what we do. But we could be, it could be a moment that people remember for the rest of their lives.
I'm just going to pull a little blip
Okay.
from a story. And perhaps this was a moment when she knew that she had pulled at that veil or had lifted that curtain for you. It's my Dharma, I said finally. And this was in regards to you
answering the question of why I went back to teaching. And I kind of went on and on and on. And that was part of one of the things I was poking fun at myself in the story, is that
you call it
verbosity. Is like she would ask probing questions and I would answer them with way too many words. And so I had kind of gone on and on and on about how I returned to teaching. And then finally I said, it's my Dharma.
My Dharma, I said finally. Her response was almost imperceptible, but I heard it. It wasn't a huh, like someone pondering aloud, nor a huh, like a one-syllable laugh. It was a subtle exhalation, as if she had been holding her breath through my meandering explanation, and then at the sound of Dharma, exhaled. Maybe she was waiting for me to come to it, to see what she had always seen. She must have wondered all those years ago how long I would swim upstream, fight and resist that which was me, my nature, my path. This half sigh sounded like it passed through slightly parted lips of a smile. I could see it. I can see it now. She didn't have a chance to say much after that. Her phone died. Quintessential her. I have not heard her voice since then and may not again, except for the occasional visit in a dream. I wake early most mornings now and sit under the stars with a good cup of coffee. I think of her from time to time when I notice the stars have shifted with the tilt of the earth. Interesting, Patti. How long ago did this book come out? 3 months?
Yes. Basically beginning of December. Yep.
And how much has changed? Well, you're not drinking coffee anymore. You're drinking chai tea under the stars in the mornings now, but you have heard her voice.
Yes.
You have got to have some of these moments again with her that have reminded you how special her presence is in your life, and all of the realizations that you have come so far, and the courage that was fed to you those many moons ago has come to fruition, because look at how and what you've done and how you've shared the story. And I don't even think you realize that this is still teaching, that you are still teaching even through these stories. There are so many strangers. Hold on, this is starting.
She's gonna yell at the boys.
There are so many strangers that you have touched unknowingly through these stories, and reminded those people how to be unapologetically themselves, to embrace their sexuality, to remember, even though they didn't come from the most loving environment, that they can still choose love. So many lessons. But whether it be in school, out of the cafe, in your stories. So thank you for your gift.
Oh yeah. No, it's a joy. This is a joy.
You're a world.
Say that again.
You are a joy.
All right, Taylor, whatever, man.
Moving along.
Enough of this.
Let's
Whatever.
get some push from other people. Robin.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, just don't be so mushy
Oh, be
as Taylor.
Do it.
Well, Taylor came in and she pointed this out today as well, that she came in towards the end of the coffee shop. I moved into an apartment around the corner from the coffee shop when it was Les Beans. And I would have not even known it was there probably for a while, but my landlord, as I was purchasing the place, told me about it as a selling point. That there's this great little coffee shop that opened up. And he's like, it's gay, by the way, and he said it's Les Beans. And I thought the name was super clever, and never got coffee there. Every time I went to get coffee, it wasn't open. I was working as a dishwasher down in Lantana and prep cook, and also at Purple Haze. And I was riding my bike to these places. And when I needed coffee, it was 5:30 in the morning. It was 6:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
It was 7:15 in the morning.
Yeah.
It was, this place was never open. Every time I went back there, I'm like, so much for the coffee shop, right? But now, as a decade has passed from, in addition, practically to the decade where you held space there, it was always very apparent to us that we were just visitors in this space, because it's one that has such history in Lake Worth, and there was like a lot of reverence for the mango tree, or the banyan trees downtown, the people that came and went. And I think it's a lot about holding space. That's what really comes to mind. But when it comes to you and how it plays into your legacy, yeah, clearly you were totally a teacher. You just hold space as a teacher, as an educator, caretaker, mother, woman, the many hats, many facets. But the coffee shop, it was, I don't know. It was like, at first, I think it was supplemental as a business to your life. Like, I'm going to do this. And then the public, it becomes something else. It's a public space. And people noticed that you held space there that was beautiful. And a lot of people came in. We saw sides of you. We saw you have to defend the place as well. Join in at times. Holding space in like Friends, that TV show where it like doesn't exist in reality, this place where there's like a couch you can sit on in a coffee shop that's always open, but you held space for that, and it actually existed for this time and place where there was actual friends there, actual just actual Dharma reality, right? That's what it was, honestly. So when you hold space like for the closure, like in Taylor's relationship, you can't move on until that happens. And I think that's a lot with what happened with this book, is it's the closure for the relationships. I mean, just putting it out there, I think in the universe can solicit a call. Holding space, I think, is really what just keeps coming to mind. Sometimes, and you even mentioned in the book that you have to steep. Like different things have to steep. I mean, I'm taking it out of context because but it's so true for everything. Sometimes you just have to, like a tea, to be the exactly like to get the best taste out of it.
Absolutely.
I'm so eloquent this morning with my caffeine.
Yeah, and you have to allow it to be infiltrated by all your senses. And
yeah,
they did that for us.
And that's what the cool taken from Patti was too, though.
Her weaving, it was so intricately woven through so many spirits, even the unseen, Robin, even the spirit of Pade, the mango tree. I think that knowingly, unknowingly, Patti was the weaver of that web, and it was quite a beautiful Dharma indeed.
Yeah, it was a magical place, and you know, so you had food that was made with love, and what ended up happening was shortly after, I used to have other people's art on the wall, and then shortly after I opened, I was inspired to start doing art, and within a few years it was my art on the wall. It was like, what the heck, you know? So I had never thought.
Taylor's wall, literally right now. Yes.
Yeah, that's one of my pieces. Stargate Woman. That's what's on Taylor's wall. But so and art is a portal, like an energetic portal too. So you just really had on many different levels, through the food, through the art, through the plants, everything. It was like a womb, you know, in a way. It was like an energetic womb for
now
people. And that's the space.
You were doing art with spices.
Yes, I did art with spices. Yeah.
That was my favorite.
Yeah.
With cafe at the end of the day and sweeping the floors and wiping the tables down, I would
smell the art. So funny. Yeah. So this, you know, and I'm gonna open it up, but it's I really do have to mention that much of this kind of sentiment will be in the next Wildflowers book, which is Wildflowers and Wooden Spoons, which is a book that you know, where the recipes from the cafe will be included, and also cafe stories. Some of them, I'm sure some of you will be quite familiar. And also I'm including recipes and stories from my childhood. So more influenced by my Italian grandparents. So that also I'm including in the, you know, because those are kind of interesting stories too. So childhood stories. But yeah, so that's Wildflowers and Wooden Spoons at the end of the year. So these kind of stories about that magical mango tree. And so I want to just open it up and see if any of our guests would like to jump in here, say a few words, ask some questions, make some comments. Adrian or Diane or Ashley?
I know there has to be questions for this chapter.
Well, I'm a little behind the 8 ball because I haven't yet read the book.
Right.
However.
Yeah, Adrian's book just shipped yesterday, so it'll be a few days, yeah.
However, that said, in terms of the journey and Dharma, you know, we all do have, I think, teachers along the way. and then we become teachers and are teachers. But I also think that there's the growth that comes from all of this that is now us. We can reflect, but use what we have to then move forward. So I enjoyed the conversation. It's going to take me a while because my brain is still fuzzy.
Yeah,
and
you
I'll
still
probably-
have
yeah.
vaccine brain.
Oh, yeah, no kidding. But yeah, I enjoyed the conversation and I look forward to reading the book.
Awesome, Adrienne. Well, it's so nice to have you here. But yeah, no, I agree. I think that I am always in this kind of in a state of learning. You know, they're learning from the people around me, learning from every experience that I have, every time I kind of fall down, every time I get up. But every, you know, all of that. So yeah, I agree. And it brings us to, it's always bringing us to the next chapter. You know, I mean, and I like living my life this way, you know, like not, you know, kind of like with the perspective that I'm always learning something new. And sometimes it requires recreating my life, which I've, you know, I had to do. Like I was in the process of recreating my life after the cafe closed, you know, and that can be an arduous kind of experience. But in the end, it's very rich, you know, on in many different ways. It's really incredibly rich. So I'm glad that I've had that experience.
It's really interesting to me because I think that entering retirement now, what we term retirement, where I went from 60 or 160 miles an hour to full stop and then pandemic, has afforded me the opportunity to look back and say, wow, in terms of those themes that we find in our lives and the things that drove us. And this opportunity for reflection has been a lot of growth for me over the past 2 years. I know myself personally, you know. So I am looking forward, like I said, to reading the book, although it's going to be very different in terms of our pasts to some extent. I think that it will be parallels, or there will be parallels.
Oh, I'm sure there will be. I'm sure there will be. Yeah, I'm sure there will be.
And there's always Sage.
And there's always we were joking before because she was like, my Catholic ears. And I was like, oh man, we're just warming up. I told her she better burn sage. And she actually had it. I didn't think Adrienne would have sage.
See, surprise, surprise.
See, there you go. I like you
Wait,
already.
Because why?
Sage.
Because why?
Because why?
Yeah, no, because why? I cut you off before you finished that sentence.
What was the sentence that I started?
You didn't think I would have the sage because.
Oh, because you were talking about your Catholic roots. Yeah.
Catholic churches are the smokiest of all the churches.
Well, I know, but they don't burn the sage though. They, you know, that was a Native American. They killed those people. They burned frankincense and myrrh. Not sage. Sage was what the pagans burned. And the pagans and the savages burned sage.
I see.
Not to be overly harsh, with the Catholic Church, but you know, yeah. So the which I do burn frankincense and myrrh too. Sometimes the actual frankincense and myrrh, but sage is kind of a, you know, one of the more.
And I have those too. So
You
there
have-
you go.
You have
Like
frankincense and myrrh?
witchcraft to me.
Yes, I do.
We're gonna have to have a conversation, Adrienne. Off camera. We're gonna have to have a off camera.
Okay.
Qualities. I mean,
What was that,
I
Robin?
said sage is scientifically proven to have antiseptic qualities.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Yep. They've
Oh, we
actually
should
tested
burn
it.
sage. We should be burning our European sages because the white sage is now been ostracized by so many. The natives are asking us to
Not burn white
kind
sage.
of find our own ancestral smudges.
You know, Taylor, you know what I thought you were going to say? I thought you were going to say, I thought you were going to say, white sage has been ostracized because it's racist.
Don't get me started. Or it has cultural appropriated, lack of better.
I'm sorry. Did I say that? I hope we don't get canceled.
Cancel. Oh,
God.
Don't cancel.
okay.
All right. Anyway, Diane, did you want to jump in here before I get too crazy?
Yeah, well, this has been informative. I had a very interesting session yesterday with my mental health therapist with EMDR. Am I saying that right? Do you know what that is?
No.
I'm not sure I know what it is either, but anyway.
Desensitization, rapidization.
Oh.
So anyway, but it was a very interesting session. And I had finally gotten to the point with her where I had decided, okay, I'm going to do this because you want to do this, and I'm going to be done after this. Because I'm just getting frustrated with you. You don't understand me. And so anyway, I did it. And all of a sudden she's like, oh my God, I didn't understand you, did I? I'm like, no, you didn't. She says, now I'm getting the picture. She says, you know what you should do? You should write to John Griffith and write a novel and do a movie. I'm like, what? Where did that come from? So I'm like, she says, you have so many stories in you. You should be writing books and doing movies. And I'm like, that's what the fuck I've been telling you all these times that I've been coming and sitting in your office and you didn't listen. And so anyway, so that's what I'm dealing with right now. And I'm not sure how to approach this. I don't think John Griffith is the right medium for me.
Who is that? What is that?
He's a mystery writer. He writes about lawyers in the South, I think.
Oh, Grisham? John
Yeah,
Grisham?
Grisham.
No, Diane, you just write your story, your style, in your voice, not John Grisham's voice. John Grisham's voice is not your voice. He's I don't know, a white male lawyer from somewhere, I don't know, but your voice is very, very distinct. Here I am. Look at me. Look what I'm doing already. But this is how I would speak to my students. It's like, no, what you don't need to write in that voice. You have your own unique voice, right? In your voice.
Yes. And that's why I came on today. And, I've told you I haven't done it. So I'm trying to figure out what that is for me. And I'm thinking, I know you have your writing skills that you can just go online and do for free. And I'm just thinking, you were saying the other day, you need to think about what comes next with this. And I wonder if there's a way that I can work with you to start developing that.
I mean, I know some of your story, Diane, and I would love to work with you. I mean, Robin and I went for a walk a week ago, and Robin was talking about her stories and how she wants so much to write. I'd love to work with you. I'd love to work with Robin. Because
we can workshop and walk at the same time.
Yeah.
Workshop and walk at John Prince. We'll brainstorm each other's books and.
Yeah, no, honestly. And I think, Diane, we should talk, and I would love to talk to you about that.
Okay, cool.
Just because I think sometimes getting started and kind of organizing it so that you can actually get it done can seem really overwhelming. But once you kind of have your own little system in place and it's organized in a way that feels right for you, then you'll be moving right along. So I'd love to help you with that.
Wonderful. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Sure thing. And that's exciting. I love it that, that the people I know are writing, writing their stories, thinking about writing their stories. I think we all should write our stories, and
Mhm.
I've said this before, in 100 years from now, um, people are going to be looking for authentic stories. And if the only people writing stories are like millionaires or these big successful business people, or hey, I made $1 million on Instagram and I wrote a book about it, or hey, whatever, I think that that it's a great disservice to the folks who are going to be around 100 years from now. These are the kind of stories that they should be, stories from that are written by people like us,
Mhm. Yes.
not the freaking Kardashians.
Yeah, right.
You know
Who
what
the
I
fuck
mean?
cares about them?
Who cares? Or it's really, and I'm not saying that there aren't these ordinary stories that are out there. Like, I just went to see Nomadland yesterday, and that was based on a book that a woman had written. It was kind of a very stirring movie. I think it's worth seeing. It was kind of sad in some ways, but very, very real. And I'm glad that people are telling those kinds of stories. um, and so, yeah, I think that there's great value in us all finding our voices and uh, telling our own stories and writing our own stories. And the thing about writing the story is that it lives on. So it's a story that someone can be reading 100, 200, 300 years from now. There were books that really influenced me when I was writing my memoir. And so I think the books that we're reading while we're writing have a big influence on us. And I generally look for books that are really going to inspire me to take my writing to a certain place while I'm writing. And so I definitely encourage. So I'll give you an example. So when I was writing my memoir, and I was developing the idea of the crone, right? The crone who's sitting by the fire.
Mhm.
I read Courting the Wild Twin by Martin Shaw. And he just goes into these old mythic stories that, in many of them, have the crone, this figure, and she is wild and she is wise, and I thought, this is going to influence my idea of my future self. I want to be
Mhm.
this magical, wild, and wise crone. That's the woman I'm living into. And so much of that image of that crone, the crone figure, in my book, was inspired by Martin Shaw's Courting the Wild Twin, which I highly recommend. I think it's an awesome book. But so I think, as we're writing, what we're reading really does have an influence on us and inspires us to take our writing into directions that we may not have imagined before.
Good.
Yeah. So that's awesome.
I have a question.
Sure.
In terms of the catharsis, basically, that you encountered while you were writing, how did that impact you on a personal level?
That's such a great question, Adrian. So I think that one of the things that happened was, as I began to write my memories down, because, I was making a list of the stories that I wanted to tell, and I started doing my writing and so forth. I noticed that more memories came to the surface that were unexpected, that then I had to kind of work through. Some of these memories there was a reason why they had been suppressed. Just put it that way. But it did give me an opportunity to kind of bring some of these memories to the surface and take a look at them and process them. Because to the extent that there are memories that, for instance, trauma, and we all experience trauma, and trauma looks different, in different ways. And if we kind of go about our lives not, kind of like pushing it down and just kind of knuckling our way through, it's going to influence our life anyway. And I think that the trauma that I experienced when I was young did influence my life as much as I was functioning in a way that I could argue I was okay. I'm okay. I've managed. I've done things myself. I'm strong. I'm courageous. I've achieved this. I've achieved that. I've achieved this. But the wounds still had an impact. And when you read my memoir, you'll see that in the way that, particularly in relationships. So we all kind of dealt with the trauma in different ways. And so I had taken the route of doing talk therapy because I was always in therapy. I spent decades in therapy. I spent a whole lot of people. Where'd your money go? Therapy. Therapy. And I have no regrets about that. That doesn't mean I didn't have anxiety attacks, because I had plenty of those. I really struggled with it, but I had chosen talk therapy to work through my issues with anxiety. So in the writing process, the catharsis looks many different ways, and it really, part of it is that it brings to the surface things that are suppressed. And so, as uncomfortable as that is, it's always healthier. Bring it to the surface, because now you can look at it and figure out what you're going to do with it and how you're going to process it. However it is, you're going to process this kind of newly excavated memory that, now you have emotional responses to, obviously, right? So you got to deal with it. I also think that there is extraordinary power in storytelling, and that part of the healing is in the telling of the story and in the choosing of how we tell the story. To consciously choose, for instance, to tell a story not from a victimized perspective is an incredibly powerful and healing process. And to go through that process consciously, so that you are looking at your writing and then you're looking at it again and you're saying, wait, how am I writing this story? And is this the way I want to tell it? And am I being honest with myself in the telling of this? And really writing it for yourself. And that was also something like, I had no idea how people were going to respond to my stories. I had no clue. I had to just focus on how I felt about the telling of my story. And that I know that I didn't, even though there were some painful things about it, I knew, one, I wanted to be really, really honest as I could be about, especially the stuff about relationships, and write it in an authentic voice as possible and as honestly as possible, and not from a place of being victimized. Like I did not want to come from a victim. I wanted to come from a place where I was being thoughtful and introspective about these things and owning my shit, but also holding space for love and acceptance of myself and others in it. Because the whole point of me writing this was a commitment to myself at the beginning of the year that I would finally write it. I was committing to being disciplined enough to write it, which was an act of self-love, because I could be disciplined for everyone else, in service of everyone and everything else. But when it came to me, was I willing to apply the same discipline for me? And so that in itself was healing. So I think the process, if you get into the process, there are so many layers of healing that are going on simultaneously. So it's a little hard to articulate, but there's a lot that goes, it's such a rich process. That's why I really encourage people to do it, to jump into it, even if you start and you stop and you start and you stop. If you start and you stop and you need to take a break and step away, it's because your mind and your heart and your spirit need to take time to process that there might have been things that came up that have come up, and you've got to step away and process and then return, so it looks different for different people. But for me, the biggest challenge in expressing self-love was applying the discipline in the process, that I had readily applied to other endeavors, and I needed to focus it for my endeavor. So that was huge. I hope that's helpful. I'm sure that when we speak again, Adrian, there might be other thoughts I have about it, but those are my initial thoughts. I so appreciate the question. It's a wonderful question.
She's
Hey.
already started the walking part of the walking and workshop.
Yes, she has. Yes, she has. This is very exciting too. Ashley, are you mobile? Are you somewhere where did you want to jump in? I want to make sure I gave you a chance. She might not be able to. Hey, you.
Hi.
Hey, look at you.
Oh, nice hair.
I love the hair, and I absolutely love the color of that room. It's one of my favorite colors in the whole world.
It is. It's Taylor's.
It's so happy, right?
Oh my God. It's so many things. It's beautiful. Yeah. Hey, so what'd you think, Ashley? Was there anything you wanted to add to the conversation? We've been so many places in this conversation.
It's great today. I love it. And I love all of the new input. Like, it's great to have new faces. I missed Inoki today. It's like
Inoki is the whole vibe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, Taylor has a very okay, Miss Callahan, because that's what I saw. I was like, we're talking about these things, and I'm like, wow, you're looking very
teacherish.
Yeah. It's
Yes,
great. I love it. And I got so excited. I'm going to read today.
So you got your what again, sweetie?
I got the book finally.
Hey.
Yes. Yes. And I love what you wrote for me. It was beautiful.
Oh.
Yeah, it's so great. I'm like, this is a gorgeous book. I posted on my Snap today. I am in love with the crone portion today for Dharma. And I am so happy that you read it, because it, like, the whole thing about, people being planets too, and how we gravitate. And you can't really help what's going on in your orbit sometimes. You just kind of gotta go with it. And this full moon is crazy. I just felt like this is very poignant and timely for what's going on. And I guess just kind of accepting that, we're constantly changing, because, the world is constantly changing around us. And as much as we want to stay fixated, you can't, the world's spinning at 100,000 miles a minute or something.
70,
and we're just
our sun is traveling through the cosmos at 72,000 miles a minute. Yeah, and we're dragged along with it while spinning.
Here we are. Yeah, in place.
Yeah. We're not even in the same cosmic neighborhood we were in when we woke up this morning.
It's nuts. It's absolutely nuts. And just staring at the sky is evidence that, like, I don't know, 1 minute it's one way, the next minute it's another. Our weather in Florida alone, everybody's been dying. I'm like, COVID's been horrible, and now we don't know if we're sick with coronavirus or it's just really bad allergies because the pollen is insane outside. Mm-hmm. Oh man, I'm so happy to be here though. Sundays are my favorite.
Yeah, they are wonderful. And Ashley, it's so nice to have you along for the ride. It's always so nice to see you pop into the Zoom. It makes us happy.
Into running errands, and I'm like, that's okay. I'm going to put in my earbuds and I'm going to listen and chat.
That's wonderful. Yeah, no, it's got awesome. Well, I'm glad you like the the story, and I'm glad you got your book.
I'm so excited. And I'm excited for the cookbook. Oh my gosh, and your book about angels, that'll be a whole
Mm.
I know that's in the future, but
Oh, you're talking about the fiction.
yeah,
yeah.
I know the future, but I'm very excited about that.
I'm so glad. Yeah, we'll have to chat about that.
Yeah, it's crazy. Taylor will tell you a little bit about
Yeah,
my angel crazy.
I love it. So we'll have to talk to you about that.
Yeah, definitely.
Wonderful. It's nice to see your face.
You too. Thank you for having me.
You're literally a ball of sunshine, Ashley.
She's totally a ball of sunshine.
Thank you. That was inspiration. The hair.
But it's
Oh, thank you.
So
I see the inspiration. I see it.
Yeah.
It's like fire.
Yeah.
You're on fire. Yes.
Yeah.
Girls on fire. Might as well embrace it, right?
There you go.
You gotta be the fire to survive it.
Be the fire.
Yeah.
I love it.
fire. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Massage.
Yeah.
Fire tornado. Well, this has been, as always, such a joy. And I just wanted to let you guys know that next Sunday, because it's Easter Sunday, we're just going to skip. We're going to skip next Sunday and then come back for our final Wildflowers live stream. We're going to be doing the last story, which is Cultivating Courage, which is it's a story about Adrian, you were talking about like what does it take to write something like this. Well, the last story actually gets into what it meant, what my resistance was, and what it meant in the process of doing this collection of stories, and how much it had to do with courage. And that's it. I think everybody here, if you also, if you are so moved, for those of you who have read the book, if it's reviews are always appreciated, and you can go onto Amazon and Barnes and Noble and leave a review there. Also, I love book clubs. If you know a book club that would like to read my book, I would love to come and pop in on a book club meeting. It's one of my favorite things to do. And I think that's it. Taylor, was there anything else? Should I be saying anything else besides this?
Haven't already. Get a copy.
Yeah, if you know anybody who that's right. If you know anybody who wants one, my website, Patti Lucia Writes, is the best place to get up to 25% off. So this has been awesome. Taylor, any last words?
Gratitude and blessings. This has really been a beautiful communication today, and I'm so grateful. Thank you to her.
Yes.
Although she couldn't join us today, I am so grateful for the veils that have been lifted for dearest Patti, and just grateful for her presence in the world and for yours as well, Patti. With that, I'll talk all day, but
yeah. Well, I'm certainly grateful for your presence, Taylor. And I tell you that all the time. So, and I'm just going to keep telling you. Wow, we're just going to you can't get rid of me. And for all of you, you guys are probably entertained by the how we banter back and forth. Hopefully that's part of it. But at any rate, this has been a joy. So we will not be getting together next week. We'll have a little extra time, I hope. If you do celebrate Easter or Passover, that you have a joyous time with friends, family, whoever you celebrate with. And we'll see you back here in a couple of weeks, and share the love. Tell people how precious they are to you. All right, you guys, much love to you. Have a blessed week, or 2 weeks, I should say, and I will see you soon. Take care.